Hello and welcome to Buying into the Future, the Public Buyers Community podcast, where we discuss all things public procurement. Today, we are delighted to have with us three guests who are going to discuss issues related to public procurement and the transition to zero-emissions buses. I am delighted to welcome Peter Stalins, who's Head of Mobility at Eurocities, François Vauxion, who is RATP Energy Transition and Innovation Delegate, VP of the Bus Committee, and Sergio Fernandez, who is Head of European Cooperation and International Projects at EMT Madrid. Welcome, gentlemen. This is, of course, an issue which affects many aspects of life in general for the public. The European Union has set a target for 100% zero-emission mobility by 2023. And I wonder, to start off with, Peter, if you could provide us with an overview of where we are with that at the moment.
Yes, happy to do that. It's important to note that there are two important policies in place at European level that are directing the transition towards zero-emission buses. And one of them is related to CO2 standards for heavy-duty vehicles, which mandate that 90% of the new city buses have to be zero emission by 2030, with 100% by 2035. And there's also a policy called the Clean Vehicles Directive, which sets minimum procurement targets for zero emission vehicles, aiming for 20% of new zero emission buses between 2021 2025 and 30% between 2026 and 2030. There's recently been an interesting study published by Transport and Environment, who did a modeling on the purchase of zero-emission buses. And what their data show, it's very interesting to note, is that buses are actually electrifying much faster than required by European policies. In 2024, according to their data, almost half of new city buses were zero emission already. And if we look at the countries that are leading, for example, we can see that countries such as Finland, Iceland, and the Netherlands were amongst those who were leading the purchase of zero emission buses. At the same time, we have to say that some of the bigger countries, the middle market in Europe, countries like Germany and France, although they are also purchasing a large share of the zero-emission bus fleet in Europe, they still have a lot of new electric buses or hydrogen buses to purchase. So there's some work that needs to be done there. At the same time, when we look at countries or cities in Central and Eastern Europe, we can see that they are really lagging behind. So there's really a need to support cities in that part of Europe with the procurement of zero-emission buses.
So achieving this target of getting to zero emissions is not simply a question of buying new buses. There's a whole kind of infrastructure there. So what else has to be done to achieve clean transport? And if you could outline some of the obstacles that have to be faced. Peter, I'll start with you, but then I'd like the other gentlemen to speak from their experience as well, please.
Happy to respond to that. So one of the main drivers for the transition towards zero-emission buses is political will at local level. We have recently done a survey amongst our Eurocities members. So we're a network of 200 plus major European cities. It's a survey we perform on an annual basis. And one of the key priorities for the mayors that responded to the survey is addressing climate change. And obviously, transport is an important component of climate action. And when we look at the transport challenges that the mayors want to prioritize, we see that expanding the public transport network and cleaning up the transport fleet, the bus fleet, is a major, let's say, a major ambition. The challenge, on the other hand, is that it requires a lot of funding to renew the fleet, and at the same time, maintaining older buses in operation requires high operating costs because of the fuel and the maintenance. So it's a good reason for European cities to take the lead in the transition. And something that helps a lot, and that's something we learned from the discussions in our community of practice on zero-emission bus systems and services, is the availability of European funds. It's a discussion that often comes back, like how can we access European funding to support the transition? There are several European programs. I will not mention all of them, but European Regional Development Fund, Connecting Europe Facility, Resilience and Recovery Fund, and very recently the Social Climate Fund as well offer opportunities for cities that want to invest in a zero-emission bus fleet.
So Sergio, what else has to be done apart from just the buying of buses to achieve clean transport?
Actually, I fully agree with what Peter has been saying about all the policy framework and what do we need to do to get to that goal. I must say that electrifying is much more than just buying buses. We need to accompany this process with all the necessary infrastructure, which is, I think, we think at the NT the real challenge in terms of investment, deadlines, having sufficient grid capacity, agile charging systems, or staff training, including how to drive in order to optimize the autonomy of the electric buses or zero-emission buses. In this regard, I would like to point out that EMT Madrid has a strategic plan that will end by the end of this year. And within this period, between 2021 and 2025, for instance, we have included 1,000 million euro of investment, half of which has been for fleet, but the other half has been for the infrastructure and technology. We are glad that we have foreseen quite a comprehensive roadmap since many years ago, because it's been already 2 years that we are only buying zero-emission buses. But we took, for instance, the strategic decision of not buying any more diesel buses in 2010. The last one actually was removed from circulation in December 2022. So since then, we are running a 100% clean bus fleet according to the European Clean Vehicles Directive. And that means that if we want to reach the full decarbonization goal in 2033, that's the target we have set, we are purchasing an average of 100 and 150 new electric buses every year. So that's why you need always to have quite a comprehensive plan to cope and to accompany both fleet acquisition, but all the infrastructure which is around it. Otherwise, you will not be able to operate. And I also agree with what Peter has said about the importance of European funding that may act as a trigger to promote this transition. We have been very successful in being awarded by different European funds. In total, I guess we already have had since 2020 around 175 million euro for different initiatives, and that's really something that helps a lot to boost this way forward.
So, Francois, could you share, if you would, some specific examples from your experience of how this transition is being implemented, and talk a little bit about how smooth that process has been?
Yes, decarbonizing our mode of transport requires to think globally about the modernization of our infrastructure and the planning of our towns and cities and the way we travel. Guarantees the effectiveness of investment designed to make our mode of transport greener necessarily involves thinking about energy management methods. It's necessary to carry out numerous infrastructure works to connect to the electricity or to the CNG grids and to build infrastructure for refueling rolling stock. The project often encounter obstacles and challenges in terms of authorization, works, and delivery delays in particular. In addition, most depots had been remained in use during the works, which generate interfaces constraint between the adaptation work and current activity. Right now, we operate 1,000 electric buses, 1,300 biogas buses, and 1,100 hybrid buses for many years. In this matter, we believe that we are fully in line with the Commission objectives of carbon neutrality by 2035. Our fleet of clean vehicles has risen from 59% to 72% by 2024. European funding has been and is essential if we are to stay on course, and the European Union has provided us 55 million euros in funding for the purchase of electric buses and has played a great role in getting our project off the ground. We expect this subsidy mechanism, in particular the Connecting Europe facility, to be maintained so that we can continue to make progress on our decarbonization and achieve the goals set by the Commission for 2035 and 2050.
Thank you very much. I was curious, this goes to both Sergio and Francois. We've talked a little bit about the public buying side of this and the kind of more regulatory, etc. side of it. But I was wondering if you've had any feedback, if you know what the public reaction to the changes that have been implemented so far have been. Sergio, do you want to take that one to start?
Actually, acceptance is total by customers and bus drivers, actually. The introduction of electric buses has meant that the user normally enjoys much more the new buses because they are newer, of course, but smoother and fancier. So, for instance, EMT average age of our rolling stock is today 4.5 years, meaning that basically you are always jumping on a super new bus. And that is very much appreciated. And in addition, whenever you buy a new bus, it comes with all the driver and safety improvements that are all, advancements and technology can provide with. And this is also something very noticeable that improves a lot the service, not only as a customer, as a client, as a user, but also from the employee point of view. And now I can say that many of our bus drivers are really willing to be allocated to any of our electrified bus lines. EMTA in Madrid has at the moment 40 bus lines that are fully electrified, and we are incorporating a lot of electric bus fleet. Our ratio today is around 20%, so 432 electric buses over a total of 2,100 approximately. And we have now kind of an additional pressure. So we are fully committed with decarbonization for the sake of all, but also our own bus drivers are really willing to jump towards this full electrification because it's also an improvement for them. And of course, users is something that is really evident.
Great, thank you. And Francois, the reaction to these changes for you?
The reaction of the traveler has been very enthusiastic from the beginning. Electric and CNG buses, partially, are much more silent and clearly respond to the improvement of the quality of life in the city. The designs, accessibility, and global comfort of the new vehicles have been really updated and perfectly answer to contemporary concerns. And for us, about the project, the transition implemented went smoothly because it was strongly supported by the public authorities for its financing and by the company's general top management. It's easy to say that the key success factors have been of several kinds. Firstly, a real and clear long-term global strategy, very, very important, due to the volume of buses. Secondly, a very good coordination between all stakeholders and a dedicated team at the forefront. And thirdly, security anticipation responses ready for authorizations demands.
Thank you very much indeed. So, to bring this back now to public buyers, they are playing a very vital role in this transition. I wonder if anybody would care to define what role the public buyers are playing, and also who else is it that they have to coordinate with?
For instance, for EMT point of view, I think public procurement plays a very important role due to the volume, but also the representativeness and benefits that it brings, which go far beyond the decarbonization of public transport. It includes, as previously mentioned, improving the user service, for instance. And transitions are always long. It takes time. So as Francois also pointed out, you always need not only political willingness, but also matching all the different interests from all the different stakeholders, which includes within our own organizations, having a full coordination between our procurement departments, our rolling stock departments, and everyone that has to say something about this. So public procurement, public buyers, I think they really play a key role because they can showcase also which is the way from big cities that are also big market players, and there we can also add this role that also has been mentioned of European funding and European framework as a great ally leading to the activation and modernization of an industry that is obliged to renew itself thanks to all the ambitious goals ahead in terms of decarbonization. So yeah, public buyers play really a key role.
Peter, you'd like to comment on this?
Yes, adding to what Sergio just mentioned, I think another important element that developed over the recent years is Europe's aspiration towards sustainable prosperity and global competitiveness. And their large-scale procurement is, of course, very strategic. There are many important bus manufacturers in Europe. And when we talk to our cities, to operators, they often express a desire to favor, let's say, buses that are manufactured in Europe. Not exclusively, but it's sometimes part of, let's say, the considerations when they go towards procurement, because some are actually very close to bus manufacturing factories, companies. So there's an important element that is considered there as well. Of course, it doesn't mean that they will not want to take advantage of the fact that there are other continents outside of Europe, other companies outside of Europe producing good zero-emission buses and related infrastructure. But in this discussion, there's also the question of the level playing field and how we can ensure that European manufacturers can stay in the market as well.
So, Francois, what is changing in the tendering procedure as a result of these aims towards net zero?
The public buyer contributed to the drafting of the bus specification by including elements of performance and reliability monitoring, for example. Similarly, in the procurement process, the bus buyer proposed selection criteria in terms of complete cost, life cycle cost, TCO, as you wish, warranties, frame and traceability tools of the subpart of the bus. So it take parts of the process by itself, introducing new compartment and new practices in the tender process.
Yeah, I mean, to highlight something, at least from our own EMT Madrid experience, I think one of the most relevant changes of these tendering procedures is that it is kind of forcing the manufacturers to create standards and to be compatible with each other. So we bought our first electric bus in 2007, and back then we basically bought a unique solution, kind of bus plus charger, that was also quite captive from market. I mean, it was just that solution for that specific brand and model of bus. However, things have been changing in all these years, and for instance, nowadays the warranty of the batteries plays a key role, a very important role when awarding a tender, and that is why it's desirable, especially when thinking about the generalization of electric mobility in public transport sector. This requires scalable and standard solutions, and this tendering process is nowadays reflecting that new approach.
Thank you very much. Moving on to discuss things that will be of interest to maybe people who are getting involved in this as public buyers. What kind of help and advice is there available for them? Peter, if you'd like to start with this one, please.
Yes, so in the context of the Big Buyers Working Together initiative, our community of practice on zero-emission bus systems and services doesn't wish to duplicate efforts or to reinvent the wheel. So we looked back at some great initiatives that were supported by the European Commission in the past. There was the Clean Bus Deployment Initiative and the Clean Bus EU platform, which was a project led by UITP, which is an international organization representing mainly bus operators and industries. which supported public transport authorities, operators, cities in developing knowledge around the transition towards a clean bus fleet. And in the context of that project, we had some great interventions from UITP representatives in our community, demonstrating all the tools, the resources they have developed in the context of that project. And also Sergio and Francois were part of the avant-garde there, if I can say. So these materials are there on the Clean Bus EU platform. What we want to do, complementing that initiative with our community of practice, is to further expand on that repository. So we're looking into further guidance, further tools, studies that can help cities or operators or public buyers that are trying to build their knowledge and build their procurement capacity in this sometimes very technical domain, and understand which steps they need to follow and which challenges they need to be aware of. So building that repository on the existing EU bus platform legacy is a big priority for us.
Francois, would you like to make a comment?
For public buyers, assistance can naturally be provided by the legal service lawyers. There is also a guide of recommendation and good practices produced by the UITP, tender structure, and updated regularly over the past 20 years. We wrote it in 2005, and now it's regularly updated until now with the last annexes in terms of electric mobility.
And I wonder, Peter, so within that community of practice, do you have some examples of the most common issues that members face or questions that they raise?
So yes, it's a good question. We see there's an interest in various topics, sometimes more generic, sometimes quite specific. I cannot mention all of them, but when I go through my list of recurring discussion items, of course, it's a lot about tender specifications, going beyond the vehicles as such, but also, as already mentioned by the other speakers here, infrastructure requirements, so related to energy management, charging infrastructure, depot management, and so on. There's also the question of strategic planning for purchasing and rolling out zero-emission buses, which is a recurring item. There's a large interest in discussing funding, business models, and financing schemes. And more recently, and I think that's the next step for, let's say, those buyers that are already a bit more advanced and ahead of the rest, they are looking into aspects such as life cycle assessment, or what Sergio, for example, previously mentioned, going towards common standards and specifications, which may help to ease the procurement process.
Okay, thank you very much for that. My final question, this goes to all three of you as people experienced in this field and having gone through this process. What advice would you give to public buyers who are working in the same field, who are involved in procurement for clean public transport? What advice would you give based on your own experience? Francois, do you want to take the ball first, and then we'll ask the others?
Yes, Steve. The main advice we could give to public buyers is to scrupulously follow their company's procedure with the help of their lawyer. Indeed, competition in the electric world is much more difficult. The world is wide and the competition is harder.
Thank you very much. Sergio, do you have any words of wisdom?
Well, my advice would be to think about what the transport service is going to be provided in the specific city or in specific scenario that a concrete public transport operator is functioning. Because depending on the type of operation and service you carry out, you may need to start with a minor pilot, a small pilot, to help you making the right decision. Now the transitions are kind of becoming faster, but that was not the way they used to be in the past. So it's always good to anticipate, to, as François said, to go hand by hand with the people in charge of procurement processes, and also to let yourself be accompanied by expert companies or advisors in this path. Yeah, to have extensive experience and to allow you reaching the final goal of electrification or decarbonization without unexpected surprises.
Thank you. Peter, do you want to round off the conversation with any words of advice? And if you'd like to mention again the name of the community of practice in case people didn't get it.
My advice would be for anyone that has an interest in the topic of procurement of zero-emission bus systems and services to sign up to our Big Buyers Working Together thematic community. Because what we try to do is to build a kind of platform for dialogue and knowledge exchange and capacity building, mainly for big buyers, of course, but we also like to enter into dialogue with the industries as well. So not only public transport operators, public transport authorities and cities, but also the companies, the manufacturers building buses and fleet management systems and digital services and charging infrastructure as well, because we find that by having this common dialogue, we understand each other's needs and specifications much better, and we will try to continue facilitating those interests through a variety of formats, be it online knowledge exchange, webinars, study visits, physical events. So that would be my advice, to come and visit the Big Buyers Working Together website, look for our community and sign up.
Thank you very much, Peter. And that's very good advice from our guests there. We will finish there for today. I would like very much to thank our guests, Peter, Sergio and Francois. And just to remind you to please keep checking back to this YouTube site to see what other podcasts we are producing and may be of interest to you. Thank you very much for listening today, and hopefully you'll join us in another podcast soon. Goodbye.